If I could sit down with every first time home buyer before they started this process, there are 5 things I tell them. And I'm not talking about the basic stuff that every agent tells you. I own a home myself. I purchase homes all the time. I'm actually talking about things that actually trip people up. The things that cost them money or cost them a deal because their agent did not tell them about these 5 things. I've been doing this for a while now. I sold over 100 homes as a solo agent. I do about $15 million in volume a year. Before any of this, I was a counselor for about 12 years and a dean of students before I transitioned into real estate. So when I sit down with a buyer, I go beyond just a compensation. I think beyond that. I'm thinking about what actually makes sense for a family member who came to me for advice. And that's exactly what this is. So let's get into it. Number 1, you probably don't need as much money saved as you think you do. This is the one that keeps coming up for most of my buyers who are renting long term. They always think they need 20% down in order to purchase a home. I hear it all the time. Steven, I'm waiting until I get 20% saved. And I get it. That's what everyone's been told. But here's the thing. That's not actually a requirement. There are loan programs that you can put 5% down, sometimes even 3 to 3.5%. And yes, there is going to be a PMI, a private mortgage insurance, when you put less than 20% down, because the bank is basically wanting to put some of that risk on you, essentially, if you put less than 20% down. But I've seen PMI as low as $89 a month, $120 a month, $200 a month, right? It just depends on your credit profile and your debt to income ratio. When I'm working with clients, oftentimes they hear PMI and they automatically say, oh, I need to put 20% down. And it actually makes them feel like I don't want to purchase a home because they don't want to pay this extra added cost. But one thing they don't know is that PMI is not permanent. It's not permanent. There's actually a way to get it removed. Once you built enough equity in the home, you can get it reappraised. If that appraisal shows that you hit the 20% equity threshold, the PMI basically drops off. So it's not a life sentence. It's a temporary cost while you build equity. Now, I'm not saying everyone should put the minimum down. It just depends on your goals. It depends on your situation, your savings, your monthly budget. But if you've been sitting on the sidelines, I want you to have an actual conversation, a real conversation about what your options actually are. I'm a realtor, but I also consider myself as a real estate consultant, right? With a counseling background, with a dean of students background. And I think it's really important to understand your options because a lot of people are renting and paying someone else's mortgage when they could be building their own equity right now. But the question is, what do those numbers look like? What's the plan? What's the strategy? And I think that's the important part. Understanding your strategy, your plan, and then figuring out a way to put something into place to meet your goals. Number 2, get really honest with yourself about what you can actually afford. This one's uncomfortable, and I'll say it as it is. A lot of agents won't have this conversation with you because they want to sell you a house. I'd rather lose a deal than put someone in a home that's going to make their life harder. When you come to me, this number 2 point here is about putting a plan in place that makes sense. If you buy at the top of your budget and you can't afford anything else and a water heater gives out or something along those lines, then that's not going to be good. So I would tell it as it is. I would ask questions such as, do you have 20% reserves if something comes up around the HVAC system or your plumbing doesn't work? There's a term I use called mortgage broke. It's when you buy a home at the top of what you qualify for, you close, and then you're basically living paycheck to paycheck because the mortgage is eating everything. You can't go out to dinner, you can't take a vacation, you definitely can't handle a surprise repair. That's hard. And trust me, surprises come up. Surprises happen when there's home ownership involved, right? It's not cheap owning a home, right? Unless it's a new build. Even with new builds, if not built right, there can be issues, right? Water heaters fail, roof leaks, HVAC systems go out. So before you fall with a number on Zillow, I want you to ask yourself a few questions. How much do you actually have saved? And are you putting all of it into the down payment? Because if you are, what happens when something breaks in a month or 2? Have you budgeted the property for property taxes, insurance, maintenance? There are real costs that don't show up in the listing price. I'm very realistic with my clients about this. I'd rather help you find a home that fits your life than help you buy one that stresses you out every single month. Real estate is a tool. It's supposed to work for you, not the other way around. And look, if this kind of straight talk is useful to you, go ahead and subscribe. I'm going to be putting out videos like this every couple of weeks, stuff that actually helps you understand what you're getting into before you make one of the biggest financial decisions of your life. Hit the like button too. If it helps people find this and I can educate more folks, then I'm all about it. Okay, back to it. Number 3, understand how offers actually work before you write one. Before I start working with a buyer, I do an 1.5-hour buyer consultation to go over that process. So I'll give you an abbreviated version right now. As a first-time home buyer, you can get caught off guard with this if you don't understand the process, especially in a competitive market. You can lose a lot of money very quickly. Okay, so now when you're making an offer, you go toward these homes and you're like, hey, Steven, I love this home. I want to make an offer on this house. There's 3 things that protects your earnest money deposit. Your earnest money deposit does not go in to title or escrow or with your offer until your offer is accepted. Usually in the Bay Area is 3% of the purchase price. So think of it like this. If it's $1 million home, that's a $30,000 deposit. So if you did a non-contingent offer and you waive all your contingencies, you're basically saying you're committing to moving forward with this house no matter what. There's no backing out. And if you do back out, you lose that 3% earnest money deposit. And that's not what we want. So in competitive Bay Area markets, such as an example, Walnut Creek, Pleasant Hill, Poets Corner, Montclair and Oakland, those markets, almost always the offers are non-contingent. They waive it, they go in, sometimes even cash offers, and there's no backing out. Now, how do you make an offer and not waive all contingencies or protect yourself and understand the risk around everything? It really starts with the sellers. The sellers will disclose everything about the property, around the condition of the home, fill out the transfer disclosure statement, seller property questionnaires, give you inspection reports, store lateral reports, all of the above. The great thing is, because in the competitive markets, the sellers provide that stuff, then you do your due diligence before you even submit the offer. You look through the disclosures. If you feel like more inspections are needed, then potentially you don't waive the inspection contingency. Because waiving the inspection contingency means you can't back out for any reason at all now. If the grass was blue later and you figured it out, you can't back out. And if you do, you lose your earnest money deposit, which is 3% of the purchase price. Now, let's say if the sellers did not provide you with any reports, me as your realtor will recommend not waiving that inspection contingency. And depending on the market, put an inspection contingency and do your due diligence after your offer is accepted. You order your reports in escrow. It's very important to know. Now, once again, that's the inspection contingency. All the risk is your earnest money deposit. Now, the next contingency is the appraisal contingency. Steven, I love this home so much. There's going to probably be 6 other offers. I want to be competitive, okay? I did my due diligence on the inspections and the condition of the home. I am willing to waive the inspection contingency. Now, the appraisal contingency, the value of the home. If you get your offer accepted, the bank will send an appraiser out and make sure whatever you offer on the home is of value, right? If you put an offer for a home for $1 million and the home appraised at $1 million, then the bank is going to lend you that million after your down payment with no issues. But if it, for some odd reason, appraises less than $1 million, if you waive your appraisal contingency, you will have to pay the difference of what the appraised value is and what your offer price is, okay? So that's an important thing to understand. If you waive your appraisal contingency and you offered $1 million and the appraisal came back at $980,000, then you are coming up with the difference on top of your down payment, the extra $20,000. Now, how do you protect yourself if you decide to waive your appraisal contingency? Just make sure you have a realtor who understands the value of your home. He can run comps, which are comparables that are sold in the past 6 months, plus or minus 250 square feet, plus or minus 1 bedroom, to understand the condition of the home, to give you the value, okay? Your realtor should be able to do that. If the comps aren't showing the value you're offering, just make sure you understand the risk around your EMD if you decide to waive it. If there's not enough comps, then hey, maybe you don't waive this one, all right? Because if you can't come up with the difference, you're on the hook. The last one will be the loan contingency. Anything with financing, my suggestion is get fully underwritten so that you can have a strong loan profile. There's always going to be a risk if you waive the loan contingency. However, it makes your offer stronger, okay? The broker will tell you not to waive it. Everyone will tell you not to waive it. Depending on the market, you might not need to waive it, right? But just keep in mind, if you do decide to waive it, there's always going to be a risk, and that is your earnest money deposit if for some odd reason your loan does not go through. Also say you need to understand exactly what you're giving up if you decide to write a non-contingent offer. I have situations where I advise a client not to waive the appraisal contingency, specifically because of something I spotted in the property that could affect the loan. That's the kind of thing you want your agent thinking about before you sign anything. The point is, don't just write an offer because you love the home. Understand what you're committing to. Number 4, think about the property that you purchase as a long-term tool, not just a place to live. I think the biggest mistake first-time buyers make is thinking too short-term. They're focused on the monthly payment, which makes sense, but they're not thinking about what this asset does for them over time. Real estate is essentially a long-term wealth building tool. I compare it to like a 401k. You're paying into something you own. It grows over time. It hedges against inflation. If you had it long enough, or if you have a renter or a house hacker situation where someone else is helping cover the payment, it becomes a really strong asset. Let me give you a hypothetical. Say you buy a home today and 5 years from now, your life changes. Maybe you need to move for work and your family grows or whatever it is. You have options. You can sell it, you can take the equity, you can rent it out and let the tenant pay down your mortgage while you go buy another property. You can even look at something like an ADU or renting out a room to offset your costs while you're still living there. The point is, when you buy a home, you're not just buying a place to sleep. You're buying an asset that you can work for you in a lot of different ways if you think about it the right way from the beginning. And I get it. Mortgage can sometimes be significantly more than rent. But there's strategies out there where you can buy something that needs a little bit of work and add value to it. So that's another way of making it a tool, because over time, your property value will increase and it's an asset that you own. A lot of people think of agents and they do the same thing. You find a house, you like it, you write an offer, the agent collects a check. And honestly, for some agents, that's pretty close to true. But the value of a great agent isn't just about finding you a house. It's anticipating the problems before they happen. I'll give you a real example for a deal I worked on. My client was buying a duplex and there was a third unit on the property that wasn't included in the official square footage. It was what you called a non-conforming unit. Now, in a situation like that, if an appraiser counts that unit as a separate living space, it can change how the property is classified. And that can affect whether the loan goes through at all. Most people wouldn't catch that. I caught it before, and I catch it all the time. And we had a plan for it before we ever got to the appraisal. That's the kind of thing that saves the deal. I also come from a background of renovating homes and putting it back on the market. So when I read inspection reports, I'm reading it differently than most agents. I know what's a cosmetic issue and what's a real problem. I know what repairs actually cost, although I'm not a contractor, but I have a general idea. And I'll tell you the truth about what I see, even if it's not what you want to hear. So when you're choosing an agent, don't go with whoever your cousin recommends, whoever has the most billboards. Ask them how they handle a deal when something goes sideways. Ask them what they look for in inspection reports. Ask them how they protect your earnest money deposits. Ask them how they negotiate. Ask them if they know how to get seller credit so that you can fix certain parts of the house. The answers will tell you a lot. So those are the 5 things I tell anyone buying their first home. Don't assume you need 20% down. Be honest with yourself about what you can actually afford. Understand your offer before you sign it. Think about this as a long-term tool, not just a house, and find an agent who's actually going to look out for you. If any of this resonated with you and you want to dig into what your options actually look like, I put together a free guide called the Bay Area House Hacking Starter Kit. It walks through how to make a $800K plus home actually affordable using real strategies, not theory. The link is in the description. Grab it and let's start a conversation.